This is News Fash, the podcast where fashion and news meet for your weekly dose of insider insights. I'm your host, fashion journalist Moshe Lundstrom-Halbert, and together we're going to stay up to date and open to learn about fashion from a variety of perspectives. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another News Fash Live, where we've got some breaking news this week that we are going to dedicate the episode to because there's a lot of ground to cover when it comes to this topic, and that is that Versace has been purchased on sale by none other than the Prada Group. Let's get into it. The inner workings of this deal, the man that Donatella herself seems to have had a falling out with and ultimately led to her leaving the brand that her brother Gianni founded and that she's been with for 27 years now. And Prada's a very interesting history of brand acquisition. Prada might seem untouchable, but if you look at it, they've actually had a number of ups and downs and hiccups along the way to becoming the seemingly untouchable powerhouse that they are today. So I will be also taking your questions in between getting to all these points of this breaking news. So have them ready and jump in with any questions or comments that you have about the week in fashion news. So it was just announced, although the writing has been on the wall for months now, that it seemed like the Prada Group was working to acquire Versace. And then a few weeks ago, Donatella Versace stepped down from her position as the longtime, as I said, 27-year long creative director of Versace. Of course, I think it is important to remember the circumstances of which she succeeded, if that's even the appropriate word, her brother Gianni. It was in the late 90s when he was murdered in Miami, a city that is forever synonymous with Versace, both from a lore and aesthetic perspective. He was murdered on the steps of the Versace mansion. However, Donatella, I think it's really interesting. She's never been to Miami since his murder, and she immediately succeeded him in taking over Versace. She's had to deal with a number of personal turmoil and hurdles along the way. She's been open about her struggles with addiction, but I think it's been very impressive how she's kept that brand relevant, both commercially and editorially, for as long as she has. That being said, in 2018, a man named John D. Idol came along. Remember that name because he's going to come up lots in today's conversation. And his Capri Holdings group, which owns both Jimmy Choo and Michael Kors, acquired Versace for, how much did they acquire it for? They acquired it for $2.1 billion. Well, today Versace sold to the Prada Group for 0.38 billion USD. It looks like there's going to be some adjustments. Part of that discount is due to the tariffs and just the economic uncertainty at the moment. But another part of that is the fact that Versace is an under $1 billion a year business, and they've been in the decline for the past few years. So now that I've gone into my little spiel, I will look in to see if there's any comments here or questions that we should get into. Jupiter says, can you do a quick fire CD review? Do you mean creative director review or Christian Dior? Because I can do both. Let me know. Jupiter also said, is Galliano really back at Dior? That I don't think is going to happen. I think it's going to be Jonathan. Kendall Unforgettable says, I hope that Donatella is okay. Gianni is watching down on her. Yes, I agree. Jupiter said, yes, creative director review. You just want me to go through all the creative directors? Well, I think what we've seen is that Dario Vitale, this is how we kind of knew that it really seemed that the writing was on the wall and that the Prada Group was going to acquire Versace. The Dario Vitale, who has been at Miu Miu, which is part of the Prada Group, of course, has been named the creative director and the successor of Donatella Versace, the only non-Versace family member to run that house. And so that's very interesting. But also, if you look at some of the brands, did you know the brands that the Prada group actually owns? They own Car Shoe, which is kind of like a Todd's type brand, like they do mainly driving mocks. They also own Marchese, which is a lovely, very delightful Italian bakery. You can visit in Milan. They also have one in London as well. And then they also own Miu Miu, and then they own a boat race that they do every year, and like Prada Sport kind of sponsors it as well. But in 1999 and in 2000, Prada actually bought Jill Sander, Helmut Lang, and in 2000, Alaya. But by 2007, it had sold all of those brands. So the reason it did so was because it had a number of financial disputes. So I think it goes to show you that just because Prada is kind of like the golden child and seems untouchable in the fashion industry these days, it hasn't always been smooth sailing for them. Okay, so I did mention John D. Idle before because I'd like to paint him as the villain that I think he might be in this whole case, because there was a very interesting podcast on the Wall Street Journal a couple weeks ago when the announcement was made about Donatella leaving Versace. FYI, her title, which to me really gives fired up stares, is she's now the chief brand ambassador. She's going to be handling red carpet dressing, thank goodness. And she's also going to be handling philanthropy. I say thank goodness about the red carpet dressing just because I think, and I did a video about this when the announcement was first made, just doing an overview of all her red carpet hits. I think that woman has had just an incredible enduring success rate of making people look smashing and really look their best on some of the, biggest occasions of their life, which would be the Oscars, the Grammys, etc. I think really nobody does it better. I especially love, and I don't think we talk about enough, the amount of amazing Versace looks that they've done for Kate Hudson over the years in these like champagne beige tones, but never making it feel boring somehow. Because when I say champagne beige and like sparkly, you probably think wah wah. But somehow all the ones they've done on Kate Hudson over the years have just been like stellar again and again and again. That tune into my lives, watch my videos, engage, interact. I see you all, and it means a lot, and it's what motivates me to keep doing this. Hi, Marcelo from London. I am actually popping into London tomorrow for meetings. I'm really excited because I'm bringing my new puppy Dottie, and she's never been to London. She's never been to a park. She just got her shots this week, so her first time in a park will be Hyde Park, which I think is quite glamorous. And I'm taking her in my Jacquemus bag, which is also glamorous for Dottie. But wish me luck with all that. I need to get her a new like collar and harness, which I want to go to Purdy, which is a very chic gun maker and makes beautiful hunting attire for the royal family on Mount Street and South Audley in London. And they make really beautiful things for dogs too. So I'm going, of course, my dog is, only the best for Dottie, and it's going to be very chicly accessorized. Actually, speaking of chicly accessorized, look, this is a Hermes Twilly that I got years ago when I volunteered at a charity sale in my hometown of Toronto, because a kid I went to school with, his mom is actually the president of Hermes Canada. Shout out Jennifer Carter. And I got this Twilly and this like matador, I think they call it, scarf stud emblem. And I've been tying this around my dog because she's just a pup as like a little ad hoc accessory and collar for now. So yeah, she's being spoiled. That's just happening. I can't help myself. Costumer Shirley says, love your perspective. Thank you so much. And Marcella says, cute. Zach says, you're chic. Happy birthday, Chloe, who just announced it's her birthday. It's Aries season. All the Aries in my life, I love you, but you exist in an alternate universe where like reality and time and space doesn't exist in the same way. And I love that about Aries. Like they really see what they want to see and believe what they want to believe and are very optimistic and original thinkers. So happy birthday to all of the Aries. Okay. Do you want me to just keep on going with your comments and questions, or shall I continue with some fashion news? Is anyone at Salone de Mobile this week? Because it seems like there's a lot happening in the fashion space there too. The Row debuted their furniture collection. I saw that Loewe and Prada have also done a lot of things there. Oh, this is a good question. Nyla says, men's fashion suggestions for Coachella. The amount of, I've only been to Coachella once, and I've spoken about this many times. I was a guest of Bjork and my friend Etta Gudmundsdottir, who's Bjork's stylist. And so I got the primo experience. I got to be backstage and see all the looks come together and drink champagne with the team. And it was very fun. When I did go out where the rest of the people were. I saw a lot of shorts on men, but I would classify them as jorts, and they weren't what I would think you should wear to a music festival that has the kind of fashionable reputation of Coachella. I was actually surprised at how many people just really were dressed for comfort at Coachella, what I saw. I didn't see as many people like turning looks as I thought. So what would I wear if I was a guy at Coachella? I really don't know. I don't know what I would wear if I was a guy in general. I really love being a woman and dressing like a woman. I don't have much fashion advice when it comes to that. Does anyone else have any suggestions that they can jump in with? Because it is a good question. I mean, you have to be comfortable, but you don't know who you're going to see. And the weather changes a lot just because you're in the desert and the temperature. What do we think? Okay. So I did want to get back to this John D. Idol, who is the one that sold sold Versace to Prada, but also I heard that he was actually like advising Donatella, the audacity with her vision and telling her that Versace was too flashy and too glamorous. How could it be? That is Versace. And basically trying to get Versace to be more like Michael Kors, the other brand he owns, preppy, more Palm Beach. This was in a report in the Wall Street Journal. And I thought, how dare he? No wonder Donatella like left or maybe ran for the hills. It just really didn't seem like it was working there for her any longer given the management. So apparently her and Mucha Prada are friends. And they've gone on the record speaking about phone conversations they've had in the past, how they'll have catch-ups and how they make fun of each other and also support each other. And, the Milan fashion world and indeed the Italian fashion world feels quite small. So it's not surprising that they have this reputation. There's not actually that many women at the top as they are. So I wonder, like, what are the conversations going on? Is this like bringing their friendship closer, or is it perhaps causing a bit of a rift now that the Prada group is owning and going to be running Versace? Zach says Coachella now feels very curated, like the type of festival, rough around the edges like Glastonbury. Yeah, I've never been to Glastonbury. However, what my family members here in the UK, where I currently am, have told me about it, I'm not sure it's my speed because it sounds very mucky and very crowded. And those are my two least favorite things. So I don't know how I would fare, but I think the Glastonbury fashion is much more my speed. You know what my favorite climate is? And it's currently this way in the UK and in LA as well. The other place where I live is jumper or sweater and shorts weather. When you can wear something short on the bottom and something a little bit cozy on the top, that is my sweet spot. I love that proportion. I love that temperature. I love to have like my legs out, but my top half kind of like covered and cozy. And when the weather allows for that, I just think you can have the most fun with fashion when you're kind of pulling from opposite ends of your wardrobe. And I will say at Coachella, when the sun does go down for the night shows and for the headliners, it gets very chilly. Yaelene says, hi, nothing to add. Just love your page so much. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. Jupiter says, I knew it was going to be in trouble after the Versace and Fendi collab. Yeah. Did anyone engage with that collab? That was very random. Of course, it was kind of following in the footsteps of the Gucci and Balenciaga collab, which felt more irreverent and more interesting because at the time, and I've done previous videos talking about this, Demna and Alessandro Michele at Gucci were really at their peak of their influence. So to have like these two most popular and successful designers of that moment, which was, I believe, like 2022 collaborating, felt very interesting. Less so with Versace and Fendi, it felt very clickbait and like two wrongs don't make a right. You know what I mean? Does anybody else miss Frida Giannini's Gucci? Yes and no. Yes and no. I think there was a straightforwardness to it, but I also think it was boring. And the shows, like I distinctly remember like the shows, even from an editorial perspective, when I would be going to Milan Fashion Week, it was a lot easier to get into the Gucci shows than it became once they changed their designer, just because there was a lot more buzz. At the end of Frida Giannini's tenure, there just was not a lot of like buzz or interest or angles around her work anymore. It felt very just like plug in and play. But I think what maybe you're missing, or what people might be missing, is like the archival aspect of Gucci, but making it feel relevant for right now. And I think she did a good job at that. Oh, Style by Maria says there's a lot of static. I'm sorry, that might be coming from my laptop where it was resting here. Is this better? Marcella says, do you think Gucci will blossom with Demna? I kind of do, because I think Demna is one of those designers that whenever you count him out, he ends up surprising you. And I think he kind of has like 9 lives. You know, there's been Vetements was kind of the first chapter. I mean, actually the first chapter was his work at Margiela. And then Vetements was the second chapter. And then doing Vetements on Balenciaga, I would say, was the third chapter. And then just Balenciaga was the fourth chapter, and all the controversy that erupted with that marketing scandal near the end there. And then now him ascending the throne at Gucci. It's been a very interesting ride for him. And I kind of love covering Demna. I don't love shopping Demna's work as much as I did in like 2017, 18, 19, 20. But I think he's a pivotal fashion figure. And I think I kind of remember, like, also too, I started my career at a show called Fashion Television. And I remember like looking at videos then of Alexander McQueen when he was still alive, and archival footage, and like early archival videos and interviews that Jeannie Becker had done with Alexander McQueen when he was such a controversial and like kind of unliked figure in the industry. And like, look how that whole thing changed. A lot of times that has to do with like how someone's reputation gets really solidified in their death. But also I just think that like sometimes in the current moment, we don't like always like or appreciate someone, and post, and we look back, we see more the merits of their work or where they were coming from, which I think is really interesting to explore. Okay, I'm glad the sound is much better. Somebody says, I think we're collectively over maximalism. The new Valentino gives me the ick. I don't know if it gives me the ick. I think the new Valentino gives me the, will this work? Do we need this now? And this is the question that I ask myself with a lot of direction of various houses. Like it needs to feel necessary and pertinent. Like Sean McGurr at Alexander McQueen, I keep thinking like, what do I really want to say about that latest collection? And the fact that I don't have a strong opinion on it, I think is part of the problem. It's neither here nor there. It's just there. I think for fashion to really transcend right now, it has to either be like incredibly easy to understand and wearable and fill voids like the Row and like Laura Piana, or it has to like really make us think and dream and challenge us and make us talk and debate. And if it's not doing any of those things, it just sort of feels like it falls to the wayside. So that's just what I think. Let me know what you do. And I also think it'll be really interesting to see what Dario Vitale and indeed the Prada group actually do with Versace or don't do, how they intend to turn this brand around, because it's not an easy one, especially like, you know what I think about a lot? Like I look at a lot of these brands like Louis Vuitton, Dior to some extent, Gucci, that are huge red carpet players, Armani, to make these like elaborate red carpet creations, and you never see that reflected in their stores. Versace, actually, you can go into their store, same with Valentino actually, and find like red carpet worthy, even if you don't have a red carpet to go to, but like a black tie function or a really formal occasion looks. Like Gucci and Louis Vuitton, and to some extent Dior, like I'm not going there. I don't think a lot of people are going there for formal occasion looks. Maybe Dior with the couture, you could say, but that's really only a certain type of customer. And so I'm just like, what is the strategy there with them, with all this celebrity dressing? Whereas Versace, there does seem to be like a real through line between the celebrities they dress and how their consumers want to look and how they're able to shop in their stores. Like, how is Prada going to do that? Prada's very judicious with how and who they dress on the red carpet. My favorite Prada red carpet look, nobody asked, but of all time on the red. Well, I love that Uma Thurman one, I think 1996, the kind of like pastel one. kind of purpley. But then I also love the one that Carey Mulligan wore the year that she was nominated for an Education. It was like the black fit and flare, very like mid-century 1950s dress that had all the embellishments of little scissors and like sewing paraphernalia, sewing machines and needles on it. That was so darling. I loved that Prada look. Okay, well, Yaylene says, I'm so curious with the creative director musical chairs. Have you felt excited to buy anything? I think that's a really good question, but also like nobody's really done the damn thing yet in terms of like there's been a lot of announcements, but not a lot of debuts. The collections that intrigued me most with the designer musical chairs that we've seen recently with the bigger names is like Heider Ackerman at Tom Ford and Sarah Burton at Givenchy, of course. And I was a client of Tom Ford, a client of Heider Ackerman, and a client of Sarah Burton at Alexander McQueen. And I will continue to be a client of Tom Ford. And I hadn't really been a client at Givenchy since the Riccardo Tisci years. I mean, who had, to be honest? No shade to Claire White Keller, but I think I definitely am going to order some things from Givenchy from her Sarah Burton's debut collection because I thought it was really special. But let me know what you think. Why is there an alarm going off in the background? Is that my sign that it's time to wrap? I think so. Okay, well, I just wanted to thank everyone so much for joining. And take care. That wraps your news fash. I'm Moshe Lundstrom-Halbert. Stick with me here and over on TikTok to stay up to date on all things fashion. If you have any questions or guest suggestions or feedback, please drop us a line at moshe@newsfashmedia.com.